Good morning, everybody. All right, relaxing, drinking tea again, and enjoying this lovely, lovely afternoon. We're going to talk about today something that I've always wondered about, and that is the moon landing. As a kid, I didn't grow up in the United States, and I went to church maybe 6 days a week, 6 nights a week. Very close community. I'm not per se very religious, but things change. Here we are. Well, there I was in the back seat of my mother's car, my mother and father's car, with my brothers and sisters off to church. Where we lived was in kind of like a mountainy area, and every time I would look out at that moon and say, wow, that is the most amazing thing. Really just was. Bright, shiny, excuse me. And sometimes I would see, what I usually would see there is like a monster. And it looked so strange. And at that time, the moon landings, I believe, had already occurred, so I didn't really know anything about it. I just knew I was fascinated by the moon. And I'm thinking, wow. So even growing up, I would see the moon and just think, let me look into it a little bit more. So I did. I started looking up the moon landing and thought it was fascinating. I was very proud of the whole story and getting there. And then about 2008, I learned stuff that I didn't want to learn, which I would love to think that the moon landing is real and everything is just fine and it's an amazing accomplishment. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So here we're looking at the lander, the lunar lander, and I've watched several videos on YouTube, and we're going to take a look at some of those too. But wow, to lie like this would be the ultimate lie. It was just too much. To think that you can fool an entire population that you did something you didn't do is hard to wrap your mind around. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's when your mind tries to agree with two opposing thoughts. One, we landed on the moon, great accomplishment, everything was super great. Hooray, hooray, hooray. And then they lied. It was all made up and it was built on a set. So this is one of my great mysteries that changed my life forever. It's a monumental one and still goes on to this day. So I'd like to know if does anybody else think this thing is fake? I would like to think it's real, but all evidence just pushes me to not think this is real. And it's a little disappointing. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that was going on. So here we have a picture of the lunar landing. And let me turn down the music a little bit here. Look at the lunar landing. Now look at this. This thing just doesn't look right. It looks like cardboard throughout this whole thing. It looks like paper. Not symmetrical. Lines aren't symmetrical. That space is not even with that. I mean, look at that. It's crumpled up. And it just doesn't look real. So I went on the NASA website and I got these images. Others have also pointed out a lot of this stuff, but it just doesn't look real. It baffles me that such a hoax can be completed with such a large amount of people believe in it. I can't say I believe it. There's just too much evidence showing that it's not real. This looks like tinfoil. What else can we see here? And then there's the whole light-in thing, and there's no stars in the background. I mean, come on. No stars? I didn't ever would have thought of something like that. No stars in the background? Come on. That's just bizarro world. And it makes you think, am I being unreasonable to think that the greatest achievement of mankind is not real? Well, that is a great possibility. And I remember Joe Rogan was on board with it not being real, and he pointed out several facts. He changed his mind afterwards. And I can understand his position, where he's saying, I just don't know enough. How could we? All we have are images and video. So this is one of my biggest mysteries that I am regrettably having to side with it not being real, based on a lot of evidence that these three guys went along with a lie. What I can say though, the lie did have a military strategy. The strategy was fool the Russians into thinking that the U.S. was technologically advanced enough to put man on the moon, and once that was accomplished, the U.S. psyche was convinced that we can do anything, and it stopped World War III. So in that sense, they did an awesome job. But at some point, I think it's going to come out that no one ever went to the moon. These guys were more than likely duped and positioned with dire consequences if they didn't, with promoting this lie. And understandably, their lives changed forever. And they could have been unwitting dupes that pre-filmed everything and then thrown in a rocket, told, get in the rocket, you're going to the moon, be prepared, then go through the escape hatch, which leads underneath the rocket, sit and wait. That's what I think may have happened, because there is a secret escape space underneath the rocket. There's a chute that goes down, and we're going to take a look at that also. So let's get out of here, and there it is. You know, it's them, grainy picture. One of the biggest things that I have a problem with is, which was brought up on some videos, which is they had such clarity in communication for being 240,000 miles away. I barely get signal from my super advanced $800 cell phone in my bathroom. It shuts it off. I can't look at anything. Signal does not go through. We're to believe that this signal was so strong, and I know a thing about signals, so strong, clear, and perfect, even with a strapped on top of a rocket, clear signal. And it bothers me. It really bothers me. Well, it did. I don't really care anymore, but because you can't, what can you do to prove it? It's very, very hard to prove. So, let's take a look at one of these videos really quick.
Since Neil Armstrong took that giant leap for mankind. On July the 16th, 1969, America's Space Administration, NASA, fulfilled Kennedy's pledge that the United States would be the first nation to put a man on the moon by 1970. It was a definitive space race victory against Soviet Russia that took 8 years and $25 billion to achieve. But after the sixth and final Apollo mission ended in 1972, why haven't we ever been back? During the Kennedy era, the motivations to dominate space were strong, but the technical obstacles were even stronger. They were in fact so great that some people believe NASA broadcast a live publicity stunt of the moon landings. Amidst the turmoil of the Cold War, the United States and Soviet Union competed for military and technological superiority. Out of the missile-based arms race between the two nations grew the battle for spaceflight capability. And in 1961, the USSR humbled America when Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space.
So, my conclusion is that we are in a lot of trouble. And if this is what we are up against, facts are going to be a lot more important. Just to say, I don't believe the Russians